I have deliberately referred to inclusive innovation as a global game changer, and I will explain to you why I say so. In fact, in my judgment, if one were to look at innovation 2.0, it's going to be inclusive innovation, and I'll explain to you why. Now, if you look at the innovation dictionary, there are words that now come in this dictionary which did not exist 5 years ago. What are those? One is frugal innovation. Many people talk about it now. Second is inclusive innovation. The third is Gandhian innovation. In fact, I was responsible for coining it. The fourth is reverse innovation. And the other one is more from less for more. And I'll explain what this means. And there are others. These words, believe me, these phrases did not exist just 5 years ago. And they're dominating all over the world now. And one might wonder, what is the magic by which this has happened? And I'll explain that to you. Now, if you look at inclusive innovation, let me give a formal definition so that it's clear to everyone. To me, inclusive innovation is any innovation that leads to affordable access of quality goods and services, creating livelihood opportunities for the excluded population, primarily at the base of the pyramid, and on a long-term sustainable basis with a significant outreach. Now, the underlying words that you see here are very important. Any innovation, that means it could be technological innovation, business model innovation, system delivery innovation, it doesn't matter, or their combination. Affordable access. Affordability depends upon what position you are in the economic pyramid. The top of the pyramid, the middle of the pyramid, the base of the pyramid. Okay? So scanning the pyramid. Of quality goods and services. That's extremely important, and I will elaborate that point a little later. Excluded population. Why do people get excluded? They get excluded because they are poor, because they are distant. They could get excluded because of disabilities, a whole range of things, basically. How do you include all of them? That's inclusive innovation. Sustainable basis, as Boris just now said, not based on subsidies, but standalone as a business, so as to say. And finally, significant outreach. Because if you want really to reach out to 2 billion people plus whose income levels are less than $2 a day, then anything that you do must have a significant outreach. Then only it is true inclusion. It just cannot benefit 10 or 100 or 1,000 people. It must affect hundreds of millions of people. I've deliberately put this definition down because there was a lot of confusion on what is inclusive innovation. In fact, there was a meet last year in Harvard, and almost half a day was spent on defining inclusive innovation. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend that meeting. So I thought I better write it down. So this is on the web, and most of the people now accept this as a formal definition. Now, all of us are used to frontier innovation, isn't it? In Europe, in US, in Japan, everywhere. And then I'm talking about inclusive innovation. Let me set the stage right by explaining to you what is the difference between the two. First of all, the frontier innovation, the driver could be just curiosity-driven science and research. You are curious, all right, and new science comes up. But inclusive innovation is always application-driven and cost-conscious science and research. Okay? There is a distinct difference between the two. Second, frontier innovation is driven by sophisticated research capabilities, is very popular among policymakers, science, technology, innovation community, and so on. But if you look at the driver for inclusive innovation, it is those innovative entrepreneurs that are faced with the challenge of scarcity on one hand and aspiration on the other hand. And believe me, scarcity and aspiration together is a fantastic explosive combination, by the way. All right. Third, market. Frontier innovation will always talk about well-established route from idea to product to market. No issue on that at all. But if you see inclusive innovation, there are new routes to not yet established markets, so as to say. If you look at margins that you get in this business, the frontier innovation, high R&D investments, they are recouped by long-lasting premiums, high margins. Okay, but if you look at inclusive innovation, there are high volumes, low-margin products. Okay, like in India, you have 800 million mobiles today, each costing $25, let us say. What could be the margin on that? But they are all multiplied by 800 million. Small margins, large volumes. Here, small volumes, large margins. If you look at the goal, the frontier innovation is improving productivity and economic growth, whereas inclusive innovation is improving the lives of people, access and purchasing power, and creating social harmony. These are the goals. I thought at the outset of the lecture, I'll bring out these differences quite clearly because we are so used to frontier innovation, and inclusive innovation is something that is new to the people. So this would serve as a good differentiator. Now, can the frontier innovation be used for inclusion? Of course. Like here he says, making high technology work for affordable access, like quantum dots for affordable point-of-care disease diagnostic devices. In fact, when I end my lecture, I'll give you an example of how cutting-edge frontier innovation has been used to create affordable access, basically. So one cannot simply say it is always less from less. That is, one cannot always say that it is second-rate science and third-rate technology which will cause inclusion. No, sorry. In order that you create more from less, you have to go for cutting-edge technology to make a difference. Otherwise, you will create low-quality products. One word has lived with it. Now, the inclusion of 2.6 billion will demand, because don't forget, their income levels are less than $2 a day. So not just low cost, but ultra low cost. And this means not minor redesigning, but radical rethinking and creative reinventing. Okay? This is extremely important to understand in the beginning. Inclusive innovation is not easy, particularly if at a very low cost you want to give something which is of high quality and great functionality. So inclusive innovation, I want to state right in the beginning, is not about stripping products and services to make them cheap somehow. It is about giving high quality at affordable prices. That's a paradigm shift. Now, how affordable, you might say? Well, hepatitis B vaccine, can you make it 40 times cheaper? Not 40% cheaper, 40 times. Cataract eye surgery, can you make it 100 times cheaper? Not 100%. Open heart surgery, can you make it 20 times cheaper? Not 20%. And artificial foot, 300 times cheaper. Not 300%. It looks impossible, right? This has all been made possible. And where? In that wonderful land of India. Okay, but it's not India who dominate this space, by the way. I mean, there are fantastic innovations all around the world, and I'll give you some examples a little later. India does not have monopoly on that, because all over the world you have had this issue about people with scarcity but with aspirations. And that combination has led people to create products. And I'll give examples. Now, let's take the last one. These are not dreams, but it has all been done. Let's take this issue and let me explain that. If you look at performance on one side and price on the other side, we always work for more from more, isn't it? We had iPad, iPod, iPhone 5, which I carry. And when iPhone 6 comes also, I will buy it. Okay? But it will be more and more and more and more expensive. Okay? So more from more is something that we have lived with. And when it came to poor, we said less from less. Because we say, you are poor, you can't afford. So you will have that. The paradigm shift is more from less. Because if you do it from more from less, then you can have it for more and more people. So ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is, how do you move from more to more from less? In fact, day after tomorrow I will be speaking in Paris to the family of Michelin. There will be 3,000 people. As you said, I'm used to big audiences. I think 3,000 is not a bad number, right?
Any measure.
And the entire talk is on how do you move from more to more from less. What is the cultural shift? What is the mind shift that you are going to actually make? Let me give a concrete example. This unfortunate young man has lost his feet. Okay? So he has artificial feet. How much do they cost? $12,000. Very sophisticated, but $12,000. Now, the challenge is that he has to actually walk on such nice smooth surfaces. You saw them basically up there. And these are not, of course, affordable, because if you say $2 a day is your income, imagine $12,000, how many years you will take to even gather that sort of a money. But still, there was this $28 foot that was created. Okay? This is called Jaipur Foot, and this made the headline on Time. It says the global scourge of landmines left thousands limbless, and then two gifted Indians developed $28 foot. Now, the central issue I want you to understand is that Indian foot has to be 10 times better, 100 times better than an American foot. You know why? Because that American wouldn't walk on rough surfaces, soily, rocky and all that. This fellow has to walk on that, isn't it? Tougher conditions. The American wouldn't stand in paddy field for the whole day. This fellow will stand in the paddy field for the whole day. Right? The American wouldn't climb up the tree and then jump from the tree. Not come down from the tree, jump from the tree. You can quite clearly imagine the stress that will be created in that foot. So in terms of performance, the demands on this $28 foot are 10 to 100 times more than the American foot. And yet, the price has to be not $12,000 but $28. So it is not less from less. It is more from less. Not only more from less, far more from less. Now, can you actually achieve it? Just see this. This is that Jaipur Foot, and see what he's doing. He's climbing on the tree, and just see this flexural strength that the foot has. It bends like a natural foot. Requires some really smart materials engineering. And then you see what he does. He jumps. You can see the stress that it has. And now you'll see something wonderful. So, he wears it. And then he runs. Normally I get a clap here, by the way. He ran a kilometer in 4 minutes 30 seconds. Okay? And then he performs regular duties in life. Now this foot is being used in 17 countries, by the way. And there is a technical advisory board for this, of which I happen to be a member. And when it was designed and developed in the early stages, I was the director of National Chemical Laboratory, and the Polymer Science Engineering group that we had established basically helped in the design of the materials at that time. So this is something very close to my heart. Now you can see what I was trying to say. I want to ask you a question. He ran 1 kilometer in 4 minutes 30 seconds. Can those of you raise your hands who run a kilometer in 4 minutes 30 seconds or less? One. I can't, I can tell you that. What it means is that if, let us say, there are 30 people in this room, he can beat 29 of you. What does it mean? There is some symbolism here. By giving him a $28 foot, you are making him compete with you and win. Had you given him a $12,000 foot, he cannot afford it, he would be crawling. And all of you will be able to beat him. But not with this. That is the meaning of inclusive innovation. That is the meaning of not affordability but extreme affordability. That is the meaning of not incremental innovation, which gives you a few percent change. $12,000 food for, let's say, 12,000 to 10,000. No, $28. That is extreme innovation, so as to say. Okay, this is just one example. Can we repeat these examples in other sectors? Education, health, financial services, communication, and whole range of other things. Let us just ask ourselves as to why this Innovation 2.0 is moving forward in the way. What are the drivers? The first driver is that as far as emerging economies are concerned, there are rising incomes, and when the incomes are rising, the aspirations are also rising. Okay? Of everyone. Secondly, there are rising inequalities. Rising incomes also cause rising inequalities. Okay? Because rich become richer faster than the poor become richer. Okay? Third, as a result of that, you have rising social disharmony between the haves and the have-nots. And there are major challenges on this. That is why emerging economies are very interested in this. But then you can see enterprises getting interested in this, because what happens is that when poor become lower middle class and lower middle class become middle class, all right, what happens? You have new customers. And you have, let's say, a new 1 billion customers. So it's new market, new money. But these are people with aspirations. So if you come into the market and give them goods that are not of high quality, they would say, thank you very much. They would want high quality goods, but at low prices. So it's a very peculiar market that is sort of developing, and everybody wants a slice of that pie, so as to say. So there is a big movement around the world now on this. And it is amazing. During last 1 year, I have spoken from Harvard to Hanoi, from Beijing to Bombay, and from Cape Town to Washington. I mean, it's incredible. And today I'm speaking in Brussels, and tomorrow European Commission, day after tomorrow, Michelin. I mean, and the whole range of companies and so on. Suddenly, this interest has sort of arisen, and it has arisen for other reasons also. So the enterprises are seeing new consumers with rising incomes. They represent the next billion market. Now, what is the challenge for emerging economies? See, the income inequalities are increasing enormously, right? Like China. Today, the top 10% has 34.6% share of the economy, and the bottom 2.4%. That is the difference. And that difference is increasing, and that is causing social disharmony. I was in China last June, for example. And one can say that the government realizes that they can't suddenly make those incomes equal. But what they can do is that despite income inequality, if they assure access equality, then it can make a difference. That means no matter what your income is, the access to, let's say, education, access to health would be almost the same. Then that social disharmony can basically disappear. That's the kind of thinking. Now you would say, oh my God, what are you talking about? This is rubbish. How can that happen? How can the poor have what the rich have? Let me give you an example. On the other day, I was moving from Bombay to Pune, and at the traffic light, I stopped, and there were two ladies. These were not exactly the two ladies. They symbolize what those two people I saw were wanting to cross the street. One was a new rich, beautiful girl with goggles and lipstick and so on. And the other one is a lady from the slum. Okay? What is their income inequality? Maybe 1,000:1, maybe 10,000:1. Can they have access equality? Yes, they have 1:1. What is it? Mobile phone. in terms of voice communication, they have access equality. How did that magic happen? Now that magic happened, the challenge was made because a handset which was $250 years ago, we said, no, can we make it in $25? And who did that? It was technological innovation by Nokia, by Ericsson, not India. Okay? But supposing that handset was there for $25 and that woman from the slum had that, but the phone calls were costing 10 cents per minute, what would happen? Because the income levels are $2 a day. $2 is 200 cents. 10 cents per minute is a call. 20-minute call, finished. Day's earning gone. She would not have had that. Okay? So what happened was that the call rates, which were 10 cents per minute, came to 0.1 cent. Okay? And this was a business process innovation. Who did that? Reliance, Airtel, these were the Indian companies. Okay? And it's a very interesting case study on how they did that innovation by which these call rates dropped to such a level, basically. It's a very interesting case study which we have covered in a paper that we wrote in Harvard Business Review, C.K. Prahlad and I. It is called Innovation's Holy Grail. That was C.K. Prahlad's last paper, by the way. And just now Harvard Business Review has brought out the list of 10 must-read papers on innovation. It is included in that. And I'm very happy to say they have done internal ranking among them. And this paper comes as number 1, by the way. Because there is this entire issue about almost making impossible possible through such innovations. And how can you basically achieve it? Let's go to this particular curve on performance versus price. Well, if you are a rich fellow, you can have a high price, you can have a Mercedes. No issue at all. But if you are poor, you'll be on a bicycle. And watch that picture very carefully. He's not only driving the bicycle, he's carrying some weight on it, which gives him livelihood. Okay? But the poor do not remain poor. They become lower middle class. And when they become lower middle class, what did you see? The entire family, isn't it? Now, we all, as soon as we saw that picture, we laughed. Of course, sadly. It was not with joy. But we empathized with that, but none of us did anything. But there was one person who saw this, particularly in a rainy season. He has talked to me, Ratan Tata. He saw, as a matter of fact, 4 people being carried on a scooter in a rainy day with a mother holding the infant delicately. And he said, this is not all. For that price, can I not give them something which is safe, which is a car? And that was Tata Nano. That is how it was born, by the way. It was not born because there was a market for it. It was not innovation that was driven by looking at current market. It was creating sort of new market. And how did that happen? If you see Ford, for example, Model T was $20,000. Beetle was $11,000. And this is current dollar value. So it has been sort of adjusted, by the way. Okay? Mini was around $11,000. And Nano was $2,000. Okay? $20,000 to $2,000. Now, how did that happen? In fact, it has been considered as such a magic that 2 Americans, Kevin and Jackie Freeberg, have written a book called Nanovation. They call it Nanovation. Okay? Because there is a wonderful story behind it as to how that product was finally sort of created. And if you look at Nanovation, what did they do? They had components with dual functionality, the same component doing 2 things. Because remember, you have to get more from less. So how do you do that? That means the same part does 2 functions. Nothing new, like I'm speaking now, right? And after an hour I'll be having dinner with you and I'll be using my mouth for something else. So we're used to that, excepting that we don't use it in design. Okay? And they used it in the design. Seat riser serving as a mounting for the seat as well as structural part. Half the number of parts compared to typical passenger car, and co-creation with vendors and suppliers. They were also participant in doing that. And the boy who led this, he was 30-year-old Girish Wagh, an engineer who led a team of 500 people. It's a very inspirational story on how this dream was converted into reality. Of course, it's not a full success story. We are still continuing to learn and innovate on because we realized that there has to be innovation in marketing, innovation in finance, innovation in distribution, and so on. We didn't realize, for example, that the customer who is buying it is a first-time customer. You and I go, Boris, and buy our second or third or 10th car, right? Now here is a two-wheeler fellow who is going and buying the first car. He doesn't go to the showroom. The showroom has to come to him. You understand? So actually, in this entire chain, basically, it's not just achieving that technological innovation. The rest of the innovation chain was extremely important. So therefore, inclusive innovation just does not involve technological innovation. It involves a business model innovation. It involves a workflow innovation. It involves organizational innovation. It involves research process innovation. It involves system delivery innovation. And it involves policy innovation on behalf of the government, basically, And it is a combination of all this that can finally lead to that affordable access. And you can make a grave mistake if you think that one part of it will take care of the whole thing. There is a combination. And the whole world is learning on how to actually do it. Technological innovation, for example, multifunctional PC, not $2,000, $200. And not $200, $35, a tablet. How do you set those targets? And I remember when I was the Director General of CSIR in the year 2000, and Boris mentioned about that. It's a chain of 40 laboratories with 20,000 people. I was its chief for almost 11 and a half years. And at that time, we came out with this idea that will create grand challenges for the country. Okay? Take risks. It will be a public-private partnership. The private sector will get money at 0% interest to be returned only if you are successful. Okay? And the public institution, for example, will get a grant. And combination of them will work on grand challenges. And one of the grand challenges I had given was a multifunctional personal computer within rupees 10,000 using emerging technologies. And why 10,000? Because at that time, the PC used to cost about 70 to 80,000. Okay? And it happened. Actually, you can see our Minister of Science and Technology in the middle with Vinay Deshpande standing there. I'm standing there, and the device that was created, it was called Mobilis, and it has been commercialized at DSK Mobilis now, which is being used in specific applications. But this raid to this $35 tablet, which has been launched actually. And of course, the jury is still out on this. It is not in the marketplace. There are so many things that have to happen before it becomes reality. But who knows what will happen in the future? I mean, when you start mass producing it into millions, maybe that $35 will come to $20. What I want to tell you is about a story of $2,000 to $200 to $20 and how the government policy, government support, creating new Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative, like initiatives, as a matter of fact, with an intelligent public-private partnership can make that difference. And in the same program, we looked at psoriasis, by the way. It's a very expensive disease. $20,000 it costs for a treatment. Time for development of new molecules is 10 years, and cost of development could be a few $100 million. Now, for inclusive innovation, you have to change all this. So what are the targets? Not 20,000, $100. Cost of treatment. Time for development, not 10 years, 5 years. Cost of development, just 10 million. Looks absolutely ridiculous, isn't it? Absolutely ridiculous. But look at what we did. We had this traditional medicine, modern science come together because there are clues in traditional medicine based on which you can actually move forward. Accepting that they need to be scientifically validated, clinically validated. So what you do is that the normal process that you have, standard drug delivery process, which you take a molecule, put it into mice, do the regulatory toxicology, and then move into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 men, that entire process was reversed. Because men had already used it, basically it was done I mean, it was tested for regulatory toxicology and then into human, shortening the cycle, the costs and so on. And here you have a treatment that has been achieved. I think what is very important is that if we had to follow the same path, we would not have been able to achieve results. Then it would have been incremental. It would not have been disruptive. That's the main point I'm actually trying to make. So for inclusive innovation, to achieve these extreme results, you require extreme innovation and you require extreme thinking, which means not walking on the same path, but taking a completely different path. Mindset has to be different. I'll give you an example of workflow innovation. I've talked about technological and process innovation, workflow innovation. Cataract surgery in the US is done for $3,000. No, can you do it in $30? Well, Arvind Eye Care has accomplished that. What did they do? They increased surgeons' productivity, not the number of surgeons. Okay? Assembly line technique of surgery increases productivity by a factor of 10. Inspiration from McDonald's. Delivery of same quality of products in diverse regions through highly trained staff. And operating profits are more than 40%. This is not done as a philanthropy, by the way. That's what I call as inclusive business. This is inclusive innovation for creating inclusive society, bringing those benefits. And only 30% of the patients pay, by the way. For the rest, it is done free. And yet, it is so profitable because there is a differential pricing. And around 300,000 cataract surgeries per year. Now you would say, come on, $3,000 versus $30. Huh? So, such a low cost, that means the quality must be awful. So, you must be saying that you must have given less for less. Sorry. It is more from less. I'll show you how. You look at this Royal College of Ophthalmologists versus Arvind from UK and the event post-surgery. Capsule rupture, Arvind is twice as good. Iris trauma, Arvind is twice as good. Iris prolapse, Arvind is 7 times as good. Anterior chamber collapse, Arvind is twice as good, and so on. So it is more from less. It's not less from less. I want to again and again re-emphasize this point. Take second case, open heart surgery costing 45,000. No, can you do it in 1,500? And this is what Narayan Hospital has done. This is Dr. Devi Shetty. He has applied the Henry Ford principles of efficiency. 1,000 beds as against 160 beds, like in an American hospital. 600 surgeries a week, clinics on wheels for scale, and health insurance covers 2.5 million people, premium of 11 cents per month. And quality is as good as global standards, mortality rate being 2%, acquired infections being 28 per 1,000 ICU days, profits after tax 7%, it is profitable, and it won the Economist Innovation Award, by the way, which is a global award in 2011. I'm just giving you these two examples of workflow innovations. And by the way, near Florida now there is a 2,000 bed hospital that is coming, basically, which is modeled on this, all right? Because at the end of the day, it's not just India which wants to have cheaper heart surgeries. It is US too that wants to have cheaper heart surgeries. Now, having said all this, I think there have been drivers, who have always come, like Narayan Hrudayalaya. Dr. Shetty said, why can't I give it for $1,500? And he made it happen. In Arvind Eye Care, the same thing, the promoter of Arvind Eye Care said, why can't I do that? And so on. They are driven. The point I'm trying to make is that there are science-based innovations, and therefore what can the academic and research community can basically do? Well, we can drive science for inclusive society. It is in our interest. Inclusive innovation then has to be integrated as a core of the educational and research experience. You cannot treat it as something outside. You have to treat it as something inside for creating a better human being. After all, as we're talking about, education is all about learning, doing, and being a fine human being. And this can be a part of being a fine human being of society who cares for the have-nots. Okay? We have Stanford, Harvard, MIT also doing it. It is not just these research institutions in developing world. For example, this question, why are 90% of world's products and services designed for 10% of world's population? Who do you think would have asked this question? You would say, obviously, from developing world. No, sorry. It was Stanford University who asked this question. And there is this entrepreneurial design for extreme affordability group. And there is a student competition for base of the pyramid grand challenges that they face. And what was one of the challenges that they took? There are 20 million premature babies that are born every year. 450 of them die each hour. Why? Because $2,000 is the cost of one traditional hospital incubator. Like that artificial foot that I said. And what did they do? They created, in Stanford, $25 incubator. No electricity, no moving parts, portable and safe. And they use phase-changing materials, by the way, in order to create that warmth. Okay? Now, the beauty there is like this. A baby is born in a hospital, and then what do? If it is prematurely born, you move it to the incubator, right? But supposing the baby is born in a hut, how do you move it to the incubator? You can't. And therefore, what you have to do is that the incubator has to move to the hut. That's the design. That is the affordable access. And that's the one that is making the difference. Completely different model. I talked about Stanford, so Harvard can't be far behind. I have to always talk about Stanford and Harvard together. Harvard has created this Diagnostics for All as a non-profit enterprise, saving lives through the creation of low-cost, easy-to-use point-of-care diagnostic devices designed specifically for the developing world. And who has done that? Professor George Whitesides. You know, he's an incredible man. By the way, he's the highest cited scientist in the world, number one. But the market cap of his businesses that have been created out of technology developed in Harvard, can you imagine how much it is? Close to $30 billion. That includes companies like Genzyme and others that some of you may know. But at the same time, his heart is in the right place. Like we are saying, it's innovation, passion, but also compassion. Compassion in the heart. And what has he done? He has created paper-based low-cost diagnostics. Okay? So you have a piece of paper, basically, of course. He uses the capillary action there, creates hydrophilic, hydrophobic channels, basically, reagents, so that you can use colorimetry, put a drop of blood, through the capillary action, it goes to the right places, the color change, and that is mapped. And it is not for just ordinary tests, like sugar and that and the other. Your liver function can be tested as accurately by this. And uses printing technology, by the way. 2 cents, just 2 cents for testing liver. Where did it come from? Harvard. Where did it come from? Stanford. I mean, this is what is happening. Why I've deliberately put these slides for this audience so that there should not be a mistaken impression that all this is being done in India. Sorry, that's not the case. Anybody with a heart in the right place is doing it. And these are brilliant examples. This innovation's holy grail, MLM, more from less for more. This was the paper I wrote with C.K. Prahlad. This was his last paper, by the way, appeared in Harvard Business Review. And amazingly, this was in July-August 2000. And World Economic Forum on 16 November 2010, within 6 months, had a full-day session on more from less for more. Why? Because it was very clear that when we say more from less for more, it is not just more from less for more profit, which you always said, right? It is more from less for more people. How can people, profit, planet go together? That is the basic issue that was highlighted in this. Well, the whole world is taking cognizance of this. For example, Jeffrey Immelt, the CEO of General Electric, said, if we do not come up with innovations in poor countries and take them global, he's talking the other way around, no? Not doing innovations in US and Europe and so on, and then taking them, but the other way around, so as to say. Then new competitors from the developing world, the Mindray, the Suzlon, the Goldwind will, and that's a bracing prospect. You can see where the business is coming from. And then he wrote a paper in Harvard Business Review with Govindarajan and Chris Trimble on how GE is disrupting itself and called it reverse innovation. Okay? Why reverse innovation? Because all along, in Europe and US we'll do something, then we look at the poor countries and say, what can they afford? Drop this, drop this, drop this. And it's a knockdown product version that will move. Now he is saying no. It will be the other way around. Is it possible? Well, you can see electrocardiograph machine, ECG machine, cost $10,000. The GE Healthcare asked a question in Bangalore, can we do it for $600? Looks ridiculous, isn't it? They did it. Next, ultrasound machine, $30,000. Can we do it in $1,500? Looks ridiculous, is it? No. Jeffrey Melt is holding it. In China, I saw that when I visited GE Healthcare in China last year, basically, the way this development is taking place. Now, what is happening is that these machines, which have been created there because they are of very high quality, like, for example, electrocardiograph machine, you can't fool around, right? One blip, if you get wrong, you are done because it will be misinterpreted. So you have to be as good as any other electrocardiograph machine. And yet, you find that it's of high quality and very low price. So what is happening now? Markets in Europe and US are opening for these. That's what he calls as a reverse innovation. The GE now actually plans to spend $3 billion till 2015 to create at least 100 healthcare innovations that will substantially lower costs, increase access, and improve quality. That's the important part. That is the intention. Now, you can see it is not them. It is Nokia, Procter & Gamble, Siemens, General Electric, Ford, and whole range of other companies that are actually coming up with innovation. Now, in order that businesses start looking at this, I'm not talking about government just supporting and creating something like the examples I gave. For them, they will have to change their mindsets. And how should they change their mindset? First, the mindset was that technologically sophisticated, performance-rich products with many features will create. From that, the mindset has to be, can we do frugal, functional, but high-quality products? That's a major shift. Remove features to reduce costs, like I said a little earlier. That was the old. No. Reinvent the product from ground up, because you may have to do unbelievable thinking. For example, refrigerator, okay, costs a few $1,000s. Can you do it in $69? You can't. Unless you rethink completely. And what is the rethinking? As long as the compressor is there, you can't do it because it's so expensive. So you change the compressor and you go for solid state electronics, which is used in cooling of, let's say, computer, and modify it in order to make it. And there is a machine called Chotucool, which is selling in villages today. But unless you had thought fundamentally differently, you would not have been able to do that. Premium price, high margins. No. Affordable price, high volumes, like I explained a little earlier. Technology push, product out approach. This is what we have been doing. No. Customer-centric, market-based approach. People first. Get the point? Current markets, old money. That's where the word has lived. No. New markets, new money. And finally, use developed world products to transform emerging markets. That was the strategy. No. Build new global growth platforms based on emerging markets. Now, each boardroom is discussing this as to how we can change that mindset to not only access those markets, but suddenly that realization that doing good can be a good business. That's a major mind shift. Because previously it was doing well and doing good. What did that mean? Doing well means make a lot of money, and then you say, what did I do for the poor? and then you set up a foundation. Doing well and doing good. Now what you are saying is that doing well by doing good. That means doing good itself is a business, it's an inclusive business. It's a new way of thinking that is just coming up. And the Global Research Alliance, for example, which I am president of for the last few years, we are working towards that, basically. It is not just developing world, developed world, and you can see the partners. And I want to project this just to show, you see Europe there, and you see 5, 6, 8, 9. Who are those organizations? Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, Germany, VTT Finland, DTI Denmark, KNA Netherlands. They are members. Okay? Apart from, of course, Australia, CSIRO, and CSIR India, and so on and so forth. We all come together, and what are we saying? We are saying global knowledge pool for global good. How can we sort of do that? This is Europe working. What the message I want to give is that how institutions in Europe are getting sort of sensitized for this audience. And for example, we have a project in Africa. What we are saying is connecting rural Africans to the rest of the world, enabling participation in the 21st century digital economy, creating access to digital services such as e-health, e-education, e-government, and facilitating the development of a transparent, inclusive, and democratic society. We're working towards that. And which are the institutions? Fraunhofer Germany, they are doing the terrestrial wireless infrastructure to bring this satellite connectivity. Fraunhofer Portugal, applications for targeted deployment. VTT is doing the integration of network management. CSRO and Masha Works, our partners, they are doing the local development. And it's a good news. It's a good news because scientists all around the world are saying, look, we need to work towards this. In fact, you can see here myself in Vietnam. We have now Vietnam Inclusive Innovation Project, and as we speak, a $55 million project is getting approved by the World Bank this week, developing inclusive technologies. And you can see all the GRA partners here, Global Research Alliance partners here, coming together in Vietnam to say that we are with you, we'll move with you, we are knowledge partners. And that's a wonderful feeling. OECD, they had in Cape Town, 21st November 2012, Innovation and Inclusive Development. So it was Inclusive Innovation, basically a conference. You might look at OECD as kind of a rich man's club. Why are they interested in this? Because they are seeing that to create a better world, at the end, you have to have inclusive growth. And for accelerated inclusive growth, you must have inclusive innovation. And I gave a keynote there, which has been captured in this side of net in terms of how we can actually move. Now, we are partners, by the way, the Global Research Alliance and them, because one of the things that they are saying is that we have been giving aid to the poor countries, just throwing money. No. Can we connect it with research and innovation, and particularly inclusive innovation, so that we become part of the inclusive growth? It is not how much money you spend, how you spend, that matters. And there is a different way. So we are working together to see this is a whole change in terms of mindset. I like to end my lecture by saying that inclusive innovation is not just Global Research Alliance and Jeffrey Mayers of this world and Tatas of this world, etc., etc. Each one of us can do something. Okay? Each one of us. Anjani Mashelkar is my mother's name. And I created an Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award 3 years ago. You know why? She used to say, if you are poor, there is a big challenge. If you are old, there is a big challenge. But if you are poor and old, God save you. And if you are poor, old and a woman, God really save you. So do something about it. And she knows what she's talking about, because I was born in a very poor family. My father died when I was 6. I was walking barefoot until I was 12. 2 meals a day was a big challenge. It was incredible, my childhood. So she always used to remind me of that childhood and say, do something about it. So we created these awards. But it's not that I'm going to tell you. What I'm going to tell you about is that in order to inclusive innovation to happen, basically, what are the fundamental ingredients that are required? Look at this challenge that last year's Inclusive Innovation Award winner had. He looked at anemia. You know why? Because he said, I understand why people die of cancer, but I don't understand why they die of anemia. Why? Because hemoglobin levels are low and we don't detect them in time. Why? Because they're expensive tests. So he said, if this is the current best practice, I'll go to the next practice. What is the current best practice? Invasive with needles. You have to go, take a blood sample, right? And then send it away. And if you're in a village, it goes to a city. It takes 3 days. You know? So he said, no. Why should I be taking that? Can I not do it non-invasively? No needles. Now, nobody in the world has done it, by the way. Hemoglobin detection without using needles, nobody has done. He said, doesn't matter, we'll do it. See, this is the advantage of being young. The definition of an innovator is one who does not know it cannot be done. Once you get old, you know it cannot be done. When you are young, you don't know it cannot be done. So Mishkin was like that. Secondly, the cost per test was $5. He said, can I do it in $0.2? Looks impossible. He achieved it. And this is what he has developed. Touch HB. Okay? And uses high technology. This photoplethysmography, spectrophotometry, light emitting diodes, the software for photon correlations, sort of scattering and all that, etc., that he has built up and he has created that. Look at that young Mishkin. Why? Because he asked a fundamental question. I can understand why people die of cancer, but I don't understand why they should die of anemia. And why can't I create that? He was the 2012 award winner. 2011 award winner was equally incredible. He created this Trinetra. What does it do? It does screening of eye for 5 elements. Whether you are cataract, whether you are diabetic retina, whether you are glaucoma glaucoma, whether you are cornea issues. It's completely non-invasive, does not require dilation, portable and affordable, just 10% of current machine. But the story, the reason he got this award was the following. When he created this machine, and extremely sophisticated, as good as anything else, by the way, sophisticated machines in Europe or US, he went to slums to test this out. And he found nobody from slum comes there. And then he wondered why. And then he found, when you go to the doctor for eye test, what does he do? He puts that eye drop. And then what happens? For 3-4 hours, you are fuzzy, isn't it? Now, for you and me, Boris, it doesn't matter. For them, matters. You know why? Because he can't work during the day. He loses day's wage. And his children might go hungry. Shyam Vasudeva's heart was in the right place. He said, no. Why should that be the case? Why should he lose day's wage? Can I not create something which works without putting an eye drop? And he looked at near-infrared sort of sensor that people had not looked at, created a very sophisticated sensor, but it had to be cheap. And today you have a test where without this thing you can do that. And in fact, this was demonstrated in Delhi. Hillary Clinton had come there and she said, I want to take this to the US. We don't have this. Okay, what needs to be done? And he said, well, FDA approvals are required. She said, I will work with you. And as we speak today, they are working, trying to get this up there. These two stories I am giving you, not because there is an award in my mother's name, no. The winners had their heart in the right place, had compassion. In one case, the question that was asked is that, why should people die of anemia? And the other case, why should you lose a daily wage? At the end of the day, fundamentally, inclusive innovation will not happen if you don't have that quality. That's what I wanted to say. And this has to be built at the level of an individual, at the level of institutions, at the level of governments, and there has to be a completely new thinking, because despite income inequality, access equality looks impossible. But here are examples where we have shown that it is entirely possible. And if this is made possible, and if we all work together, we'll create a better world for tomorrow. So just as I said, these Global Research Alliance institutions have come together. I'm very happy that the government is thinking, the two governments are thinking that we should work together. And this way is the way to create a better world, a more equitable world, a happier world, where 7 billion people will have a smile on their face. Thank you very much.